Hello.
Em có cần bật cao không?
Có, em bật được nhưng mà đợi anh tí anh chuyển cái hot xuống phần. Nghe được chưa? Nghe được chưa em? Nghe được chưa em? Nói thử đi để anh test cái tai nghe này.
Alo, alo.
Ok, anh chuyển hot xem nhé. Em nhìn thấy cái option dịch chưa? Option interpretation. Thấy chưa? Thấy cái đấy chưa? Bây giờ bật thử cái kênh tiếng Việt đi để anh kiểm tra này. Bật thử cái phiên dịch ấy.
Em đang bật kênh tiếng Việt đây. Anh nói thử xem nào. Không nghe thấy gì. Không nghe thấy gì em ơi.
Linh ơi, chuyển tranh về kênh thường. Chuyển anh về kênh thường. Tắt tắt cái dịch đi.
Em tắt rồi mà.
Nghĩa là
Ê, em tắt rồi, tắt rồi.
ok ok. Mọi người có thể chờ đến 8 giờ thì chúng ta bắt đầu. Vừa rồi thì mình đã vừa test một số cái chức năng. Mọi người vẫn nghe được bình thường đúng không ạ? Nếu mà nghe được thì giơ tay cho mình xem được. Ok, cảm ơn mọi người.
Hello.
Hello, hello, doctor.
Hey, how you doing?
Yeah, we're fine.
Good.
How things going in America?
Everything is well so far.
Yeah.
Okay, so so you got 92 people logged in. I'm having a little bit of computer issues.
What issues?
My computer, for some reason, is not taking the battery charge. So if I unplug it, it's not charging. If I unplug it, it's gonna drain. If I keep it plugged, it's gonna be fine. But this morning it was completely drained out of power, so I had to wait for about 15 minutes to be able to turn it on. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, maybe it's the cable, I don't know. All right, so we're doing zirconia bonding. Just look for this.
Is that okay now?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Can you turn on your webcam and something? Or can you try to share your screen? Okay, I can see you. Hi. Yeah.
Hello.
Hello. So hi, let me introduce. It is Dr. Linh who will be our host today, and I will be your interpreter.
Hi.
Hi.
Can you say something to our dentist?
Say that again.
Yeah, can you say something to our dentist? Say hi or something.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to be here today.
Thầy gửi lời chào tới tất cả mọi người và rất là hân hạnh được giảng bài trong ngày hôm nay. Sao mic của mình nhỏ à? Ai bảo mọi người thấy mic mình nhỏ mà, để mình cho to lên một chút ạ. Như thế này được chưa? Vừa chưa? Ok ạ. Âm thanh của mình nhỏ hay là âm thanh của thầy nhỏ ạ? Của bác sĩ Khánh nhỏ hay là của thầy bị nhỏ ạ? Để mình còn biết và điều chỉnh. Ok.
Okay, so you are going to be translating, correct?
Yeah, I will be the translation.
Brilliant. So I have a presentation. We're doing bonding to zirconia, correct?
Yeah, bonding to
So-
zirconia.
Yes.
Yeah, bonding to
So give me 1 minute, just 1 minute.
Oh,
So
sorry. The cementation protocol.
the cementation protocol.
Yeah,
Yes, I know.
I told David that.
So, all right. So let me just do a little something here.
Yeah, and I have something to fix. Cái mic của mình đã nghe rõ chưa mọi người? Mọi người có thể chat lại cái mic dịch của mình đã nghe rõ chưa? Nếu mà nghe rõ rồi mọi người có thể comment cho mình biết ạ. Tại vì cái này rất là quan trọng đấy ạ. Vâng, rồi tại vì là cái phần này nó khá là quan trọng nên mình muốn mọi người phải kiểm tra xem nó chuẩn hết chưa để mình còn biết. Rồi, cảm ơn tất cả mọi người.
Okay, hold on a minute.
And now we will have some slide to guide everyone to use Zoom webinar. So can I take about 3 or 5 minutes?
Okay, go on.
Yeah, Linh em bắt đầu đi. Thì
Xin chào mọi người. Xin chào mọi người thì Chào mừng mọi người đã đến với phòng họp hội thảo trực tuyến quy trình gián phục về gián tiếp của bác sĩ Ronaldo Nunes ngày hôm nay. Thì mình là Khánh Linh, host vòng Zoom hôm nay và hân hạnh được cộng tác cùng mọi người. Mình xin giới thiệu bác sĩ Dr. Ronaldo Nunes, báo cáo viên ngày hôm nay. Hi Dr. Nunes. Và mình xin giới thiệu bác sĩ Quang Khánh, người sẽ đóng vai trò chuyển ngữ từ tiếng Anh sang tiếng Việt ngày hôm nay. Trước hết thì mình xin giới thiệu một chút về hệ thống Zoom webinar cho mọi người được biết. Thì hệ thống này hơi khác một chút so với cả Zoom meeting mà mọi người từng làm việc. Thì ở phần thanh công cụ ở dưới đáy, mọi người có thể thấy là có các khung hỏi đáp, Q&A, khung chat, giơ tay ở phần phiên dịch. Mọi người khi có câu hỏi thì có thể gửi vào khung hỏi đáp Q&A và các vấn đề về kỹ thuật thì có thể chat riêng lên khung chat hoặc là nhờ trực tiếp nhân viên công ty Thái Bình Dương có thể hỗ trợ. Và tiếp đến là hệ thống thông dịch interpretation ấy. Thì khi mọi người chọn kênh tiếng Việt thì sẽ nghe được phần phiên dịch của Dr. Khánh và âm thanh bài giảng gốc đã được làm nhỏ. Còn khi mọi người chọn kênh tiếng Anh thì sẽ được nghe âm thanh bài giảng gốc. Và đây là thao tác ở trên máy tính và điện thoại. Mọi người có thể nhìn thấy slide mình chia sẻ ạ. Thì ở trên máy tính thì mọi người bấm vào interpretation và chọn kênh tiếng Việt hoặc là tiếng Anh. Ở trên điện thoại thì mọi người bấm vào góc 3 chấm ở bên góc dưới bên phải ạ. Thì ở đây sẽ có chọn ngôn ngữ là âm thanh gốc hoặc là tiếng Việt, tiếng Anh ạ.
Ok, bây giờ em chuyển anh về chế độ người dịch đi. Chuyển anh về chế độ người dịch để mọi người có thể kiểm tra lại cái thông tin nhé. Bắt đầu bật chế độ dịch đi.
Em mở rồi đấy ạ. Mọi người có thể chuyển sang kênh tiếng Việt để nghe được Dr. Khánh.
Bắt đầu đi em.
Nếu mà không còn vấn đề gì thì em xin phép được bắt đầu buổi học ngày hôm nay ạ. Dr. Nunes, you can start your presentation now. Thank you.
Okay. Perfect. I'm going to share my screen, correct? Okay, I have one question. Will I be able to continuously speak, or do I need to wait for the translation to occur?
We will do simultaneously. That
You're gonna
means
do
you
it-
continue.
Okay, so I don't need to stop.
Yeah, you don't need to stop. I will translate. Thank you.
Perfect. All right, perfect. Thank you very much. So before I start, I wanna thank my friends from Vietnam for the invitation. It's always a pleasure, you know, to share with colleagues from all over the world. It's always interesting because it at least it provides, okay, it provides me with a different perspective, and it gives me the opportunity to share my work and the work of BISCO. All right, so I am going to share my screen right now, and oddly enough, I have encountered many issues working with Zoom, and the issues are that when I play the presentation, I can see the slides changing, but some people will just get a blank screen, no change. So I am not going to play the presentation. I'm just going to be, you know, going slide by slide. And that way we will avoid any type of, you know, craziness, and everybody can see everything and everybody can enjoy. All right, so first of all, my name is Rolando Nunez. I am a dentist. I graduated in 1995, and I practiced dentistry for over 25 years. I have a master's degree in material science and biomaterials, and I started working with BISCO in the research and development lab, helping developing products. I have been involved with BISCO for a long time. I was a consultant for them, a clinical consultant. And then in the year 2013, I moved to Chicago and became a full-time employee. I am the current manager of clinical marketing at BISCO, and I work at BISCO full-time. So this is my disclosure slide. I work for BISCO. With that being said, I didn't come here to promote products. And I will discuss some products, you know, BISCO products and other companies' products. But I came here more to share information on how to properly bond to the zirconia surface, which is becoming extremely popular in, you know, all over the world. So again, a little bit about myself. I'm not too concerned about my CV. I think anybody can write anything on a slide. I think that what's more important is the message that you want to get across. So if somebody wants to check me out, you can Google me, and I'm sure you will find information about what I do. It doesn't really matter to me. What matters is that at the end of the day, at the end of this presentation, you will have some information that hopefully it will be useful to you. That's what really matters. It doesn't matter my background. What matters is that the information for you is important and valuable. I am not a clinician nowadays. I am not. I practiced dentistry for many years, okay? And I stopped practicing dentistry right before everything went digital, all right? when everything started becoming digital, you know, impression taking and, you know, scanning, you know, digitals. There was CAD CAM already, but now everything is so digital within the office. You can accomplish digital dentistry within the office. You don't have to send it out. So I never had a scanner. That's probably one piece of equipment that I never had in my hands. I don't know how to use it. And to be honest, that's not, I have no interest in learning how to do that. I'm not practicing, but I do a lot of research. I have a lot of interest in that. And I work, I have the opportunity to work in a very comprehensive lab. The laboratory at Bisco is very big, and it has many, many opportunities to do many, many things every day, okay? So by being involved in research, it gives me the chance to understand how surfaces interact with different chemicals. It gives me the chance to see how I can improve the bonding procedure to a specific surface. It gives me the chance to understand why certain things work better than others. It gives me the chance to understand why certain things don't work. And every time there is something new out there, a new material, a new product, a new surface, it gives me the chance to test that, to go to the lab and test it and gather data, because data can become information, okay? And that information needs to be shared in order to become knowledge. And that knowledge should lead to wisdom. So there is a process through the gathering of data all the way to understanding what it means and all the way to actually making sense out of it. And that's what I like to do all day long. I love it. I work in a lab. I don't miss clinical dentistry. And there are people that love clinical dentistry, and that's important. You guys, you know, but in my mind, what it's more important to me is to work in research. So when it comes to bonding seems like a very complex thing. You know, people get very confused about bonding sometimes. They start to, you know, they think about what products can they use, why one product will be better than the other, which product should they buy. And people always ask me for a recipe. They want to know everything simple, you know, step 1, step 2, step 3. And I will provide you with that today. I will give you the recipe to bond to zirconia in different permutations. However, more important to me is to understand why we have to do each step, rather than this is what you need to do and I give you a recipe and then you just do it, but you don't know why. You're just doing it. And if you follow the recipe, you're going to succeed. But if you understand the why, and then you can, if something happens, you can go back and evaluate where the mistake was and what was the reason for the failure. So to me, it's more important to understand why, because if you understand why, you can do anything with any product because you understand why, and you will understand which product will work or which chemical will work and why. Why? To me, that's more important than the recipe. I will give you the recipe today, don't worry, but I'm going to tell you the why, which is more important in my mind. So in order to bond, all you got to do is have common sense and a little bit of knowledge. Yes, you need to know a little bit of something. It just doesn't happen by magic. You need to understand what is it that you're doing to the surface in order to achieve bond. So bonding is a process. It's a very simple process, okay? It's not complicated. It's very simple, and it's always the same. It's always the same. The process of bonding, it's always the same. It doesn't change. It never changes. It's always the same, all right? So the process is the same. However, your substrate, what you're going to bond to, is going to determine your method, which is your procedure, okay? And your procedure is going to be different for different substrates, but the process that you want to achieve is always the same. So if you understand the process, treating a substrate is going to be simple. You don't have to think about recipes because you understand what is it that you're doing and why, okay? Which is, again, more important than understanding a recipe, reading a recipe. So what's the process? The first part of the process is mechanical retention. If you're capable of achieving mechanical retention, and then you are 70% done with your bonding, okay, mechanical retention is very important, very, very important. And it needs to be achieved one way or another. So I'm going to give you an example. How do you achieve mechanical retention on enamel, which is not what we're talking about today, but let's talk about, an example. Well, you're going to etch it with phosphoric acid. You're going to etch it for 20 seconds or 15 seconds, whatever amount of time you find appropriate. I think that anywhere between 15 to 20 seconds, it's fine. You're going to etch it with phosphoric acid. Once you rinse the phosphoric acid, you will have achieved mechanical retention on enamel. Now, let's think about, let's say, Emax, lithium disilicate. I need to achieve mechanical retention. Can I use phosphoric acid? No, I cannot. Because phosphoric acid will not etch Emax. It's not strong enough. It doesn't work. You need to use a stronger acid, but you are going to etch it, the Emax, but you're going to use a different material. So your substrates, going back to that slide, your substrates is going to establish your method. So Emax, you need to etch it. For how long? You need to etch it. Well, with what? With hydrofluoric acid. For how long? 20 seconds. And that is established by Ivoclar, which is the Emax manufacturer. 20 seconds. You're done. Done. So, can you use hydrofluoric acid on enamel? No, you cannot. No. Hydrofluoric acid should not be used on the tooth structure. Can you use phosphoric acid to etch Emax? No, you cannot, because it will not work. So now you have two products. The method changes based on the substrate. You have hydrofluoric acid that will work on Emax, and you have phosphoric acid that will work on enamel. What is it that you're trying to achieve? You're trying to achieve mechanical retention. That's it. So different substrate, different method, same process though. Same process, mechanical retention. So the first question you have to ask yourself, instead of requesting a recipe, is how do I achieve mechanical retention to this surface? That is the first question. Nobody asked me that question. Never. People ask me, what's the recipe? And that's fine, I will provide it. But if you want to know the why, Well, mechanical retention, that's your first thing. Now, there is a second component of the process, and the second component is called chemical interaction. Chemical interaction is basically what kind of primer or what kind of chemical are you going to put on top of that surface that you have treated for mechanical retention first, okay? And whatever you put in there is gonna have to interact, okay? So enamel, again, what do you put on enamel? Well, you put a dental adhesive of your choice. You know, if you ask me, I will say All-Bond Universal, which is the adhesive that Bisco makes, but you can use any adhesive that is designed for intraoral use, okay? A dental adhesive. And then if you need to light cure it, you light cure it, okay? And that's how you achieve your chemical interaction on the enamel. Now let's go back to Emax. Emax, you cannot use an adhesive because the adhesive will not react with Emax. You need to use something that will chemically react with Emax in order to achieve chemical interaction. So you are going to use silane, okay? Pure silane. Now, let me tell you something. These are examples. I'm not here to talk about bonding protocols to the tooth structure. That will be a different webinar. I'm not here to talk about bonding protocols to glass ceramics. That's a different thing. So whenever you do your questions, please ask questions about zirconia, which I am going to talk extensively, all right? You know, some people say, oh, why can't I use adhesive on Emax? I'm not going to answer that question because today's webinar is about zirconia. So let's keep it clean, guys. Keep it clean. All right, so now that we understand mechanical retention and chemical interaction, we're going to move to substrates. When you think about substrates, there are so many different ones, so many, and they're going to be more as, you know, as companies evolve and they develop new materials. There are going to be so many. You have zirconia in 3 types. You know, you have the 3Y zirconia, which is very opaque but very strong. And then you have 4Y, which is kind of a little bit of translucency, not as strong, but still strong. And then you have the 5Y. You know, the 5Y is a translucent zirconia that now you can use it for veneers in the static region. Very nice. Not as strong as the 3Y or the 4Y, but still super strong compared to Emax. So now you have a very strong and aesthetic material, you know, and that's just zirconia. And you have all these different brands. You know, you have Glidewell, you have Noritake, you have Zirconzan, you have, I mean, so many different types, different brands. All right, so I'm going to, hold on a minute. I'm going to mute myself for 1 second. There is something going on here. I'm at my house. Just 1 second, I'm going to apologize, okay? Just one moment. Sorry, guys. I'm at home and I'm having a little emergency, but I'm back. This is what happens when you have to work from home, thanks to COVID. You know, thank you, COVID. So yeah, I'm having an emergency. And at the same time, I'm doing a webinar to my friends from Vietnam. I have to take care of the emergency. So thank you very much for being patient. Okay, so now there are so many substrates, so many different substrates, and they're going to be more and more. You know, you have now you have the lithium disilicates, you have the lithium silicates, you have the feldspathic porcelains, and now you have these hybrid ceramics in the market. You have composite, super strong but super nice, and everything comes in blocks and pucks. Everything can be milled in a machine. So I mean, there are so many options, and that's why bonding is so important, because the more options you have, the more you need to understand how to approach bonding in a very predictable way. Otherwise, the chances for failure are going to increase exponentially as we have more and more substrates. All right, so let's talk about zirconia, which is basically what we came here to talk about. All right, give a little intro on the process, which is very important. If you understand the process, you are going to understand this fairly easy. So zirconia is a material that is right now is probably the most popular material, at least in the United States. Okay, and for a long time, Emax was seen as a material that could be used in both in the posterior and in the anterior region. It's very easy to make, it's super strong, it's aesthetically pleasant, and you know, people were using it left and right. Zirconia became popular because of its strength and its ability to stop crack propagation, you know, through the changes in the structure from, you know, monoclinic to tetrahedral, all that fun stuff that we've heard so many times, and it's been around for a long time. Now, zirconia was not aesthetic at the beginning. It has evolved, now it's very aesthetic. So now, by being more aesthetic, instead of just using it in the posterior region, we can use it also in the anterior region. Okay, also in the anterior region, which is awesome, right? So because of that ability to be used in so many different ways and in different places, we can actually use it for everything. That's why it's very popular. But there are some mysteries about zirconia, and we're gonna talk about it. First of all, I've heard a lot of people say that zirconia is metal, and I've heard this many times. Zirconium as an element is a metal. I think it's number 40 in the periodic table. But in dentistry, we do not use zirconium. We use zirconium oxide or zirconia. Okay, so it's different. It's an oxide. So it's a ceramic. Okay? Zirconia is a ceramic. It doesn't contain any glass. It doesn't contain silica. It doesn't. It contains, it's just zirconia. You cannot etch it with hydrofluoric acid. You can't, unfortunately. It would be great if you could, but you cannot, okay? Also, because it doesn't have any silica in it, silane will not work. It just won't work. So you cannot perform a typical ceramic bonding procedure as you would with Emax or feldspathic porcelain with zirconia. You can't. It's not going to work. It is not going to work. It's not going to bond. So you're thinking, well, I need to generate mechanical retention and I need to generate some chemical interaction. Yes, you are going to have to do that. However, you can't do it with hydrofluoric acid and silane. It's not going to work. That's very important because for many years, people thought they could do that. And you can still see and read and listen to people saying, oh, I'm using silane on zirconia. And people ask me, can I use it? I tell people you can, but it's not going to work. I mean, you can place it, but it's not going to bond. That's very important. Now, here's also something that is interesting. Saliva reacts with zirconia, okay? Chemically reacts. And this is something that doesn't happen with any other surface. It doesn't. No other surface chemically interacts with saliva. Zero, okay? Metal doesn't interact with saliva. Emax doesn't interact with saliva. Composite doesn't interact with saliva, you know? But zirconia does. Saliva contains phosphate lipids. And these phosphate lipids will bond to the zirconia bonding sites. So now you are actually contaminating zirconia. And this is very important. Why? Because we in the lab, no developing company knew about the interaction between saliva and zirconia. And for a long time, we were doing bonding procedures in the lab, and we were gathering interesting data. But then when clinicians were doing their bonding, things were failing. And you were like, why? Well, there is a variable in the clinical world. It's called saliva that we in the lab never included as part of a variable because we knew that saliva didn't affect the surface that you were bonding to. I mean, you can put saliva on top of, let's say, Emax, and then you rinse it with water and you're good, okay? But if you put saliva on zirconia and then you rinse it with water, it will still be contaminated. So this is very important. Why is this important? Because if you have a surface of zirconia surface that has been contaminated with saliva, your bonding is going to be diminished. Okay, your bond strength is going to be lower. Okay, and that's a problem. That's a problem, and you need to understand this. And I will go through the motions on so I can tell you when it becomes contaminated, okay? So these are facts. So let's move on to a protocol, all right? Around the world, dentists in general don't have a sandblaster in their office, okay? In general, there might be some dentists that have a sandblaster, which is awesome. I highly recommend dentists to get a sandblaster. Actually, there are some equipments out there. There is one called AquaCare. There is another one called Prep Start or Prep Smart. I can't remember. These are sandblasters that work with water, so you can go intraorally. These are even better, but they are pricey. They are an investment, okay? So not everybody has one of those, but you can get a small $200 sandblaster and you can, you can work. You have to have a way to work with it so all the powder doesn't fly around. You gotta have a hood or a little box where you do your blasting. And I highly recommend people to get a sandblaster, okay? But in general, dentists don't have a sandblaster. You know who has a sandblaster? The laboratory. the lab technician, the dental technician, they have a sandblaster for sure, 100%. So dentists will tell the lab to sandblast their zirconia restorations. This is how you achieve mechanical retention. You tell the lab to sandblast it. And they're going to sandblast the internal part, okay? Not the external, the internal part of the crown or of the restoration, whatever restoration it is, crown, bridge, inlay, veneer, it doesn't matter. They're going to sandblast it for you. And they're going to send it to you already sandblasted, okay? You're going to receive that restoration from the lab, and you're going to try it in. You're going to take the preparation in the mouth. You're going to remove the provisional. You're going to clean, and you're going to take the crown or the restoration, and you're going to try it in. Once you try it in, it becomes contaminated immediately, totally contaminated, okay? And once it becomes contaminated, you need to decontaminate it. You need to clean it. And water is not going to be enough. It is not going to be enough. You cannot put, oh, I'm going to put it in the ultrasound. No, it's not enough. You need to apply some kind of chemical to remove that contaminated surface. Because if you decide to apply your primer, and then your primer is not going to work, your chemical interaction is not going to happen. So even though you have your mechanical retention, you won't get any bonding, real bonding, which is the chemical interaction. So you need to decontaminate your restoration once you tried it in. So you're going to use a decontaminating agent, and I will tell you which one to use. There are a few out there. You're going to rinse it, and now you're going to apply a primer. The question is, which primer? And the answer is an MDP-containing primer. The primer must have MDP. And I will show you images of the different primers and the different decontaminating agents and everything. But you need to use an MDP-containing primer. Bisco has one. It's called Z Prime Plus. Okay, there are others out there. But they have to have MDP, which is specific for bonding to zirconia. This is a primer that will chemically bond to zirconia. So your primer must have MDP. I'm sorry, MDP is a monomer. And MDP is a monomer that will specifically bond to zirconia. It also bonds to metal, okay, but it bonds to zirconia. So it is very important. And then after you do that, you use your cement. Now, what are you going to do on your preparation? That's up to you, whether you want to bond or whether you want to use a self-adhesive cement. That's up to you, okay? It is not a requirement, but it is important that you as a clinician determine whether the preparation needs the place of an adhesive or whether you decide to use a self-adhesive cement, which is totally feasible, but you need to understand that bonding to zirconia is one thing and bonding to the tooth is another thing. All right, I'm going to ask you guys for another minute, really quick, and then I'll Okay, I am back and everything is great. Thank you so much. All right, so now that you have understood this, let's talk about someone that might have a sandblaster in their office. So a dentist that has a sandblaster, they have an advantage. Why? Because they get the restoration from the lab without any sandblasting done, and they are going to sandblast it themselves. So they try it in. As soon as they try the restoration in, it becomes contaminated. Now you can sandblast it. You know, you take it out of the mouth, you rinse it, and now you sandblast it. If you do this, you're not going to need to use a decontaminating agent. It doesn't hurt, but it's optional. I think that the more you do, the better, because your bonding is always better. But if you decide, I don't want to use a decontaminating agent because I have a sandblaster, you're going to be fine. So the decontaminating agent is optional. By having a sandblaster, you don't need to have the decontaminating agent. And then you sandblast, you rinse, you dry, and then you apply your MDP containing primer. Okay? So there is a difference in, you know, whether you sandblast it or whether it comes sandblasted. If it comes sandblasted and you try it in, you have to decontaminate. It's mandatory. If you have the sandblaster, you're going to remove the contaminated surface with the sandblaster. Okay, so that's the difference. That's a different permutation right there. That's important. Okay, so if you have a sandblaster, I think there are some things to consider when it comes down to the protocol for sandblasting. We in the lab, and this is something that we use because of research. This is not something that we came up with, you know, randomly. This is something that we use because we've done research and we have read other people's research. So the powder that we use is called aluminum oxide. Okay? Aluminum oxide comes in different sizes. It is not expensive. Aluminum oxide is very cost effective. Okay, you can buy a lot of aluminum oxide with little amount of money. So we use a 50 micron aluminum oxide. Okay, 50 micron. Can you use something around 75? Yeah, you can. It's okay. But we use 50. We recommend 50. This is our protocol. Okay. We do control the pressure of the sandblaster to 40 psi or 2.8 bars. Okay. This is in the lab, but you can control that too in your office. Not a problem. Now, the first two, we like to really emphasize that, you know, 50 micron, 40 psi. The time is different because the time is going to vary on the size of the restoration. At Bisco, when we do sandblasting of a zirconia surface for bonding, usually the surface has the same surface area. Always, all zirconia samples that we have one size, and they're flat. So we know that it will take about 20 seconds to properly sandblast that sample. But if you're sandblasting a crown, it's different than if you're sandblasting an onlay. It's different than if you're sandblasting a veneer. It's different if you're sandblasting a premolar restoration than a big molar restoration than a bridge. So in your case, you need to make sure that you sandblast properly. You can see how the surface looks different after you sandblast, okay? Make sure that all the surface looks like you have sandblasted. We can control the angle of the sandblast nozzle, the tip. We can control it at 60 degrees. All we say is don't do it perpendicular. Just make an angle so you are sandblasting at an angle. And also don't put the tip directly on the restoration. You got to keep a distance. We keep a distance about 2 centimeters. Okay. The more you do it, the more expertise you gain, the better you get at it. Okay. But we do try to keep these, bullet points as rules in the lab. Rules. All right. So your primer. Your primer must contain MDP. I already said this. Okay. And it should be dedicated, meaning that you should try to use a primer that is specifically for zirconia and metal and so on, but for zirconia, okay? Can you use an adhesive that has MDP? Yes, but you need to like it. And your adhesive is not dedicated. Your adhesive is dedicated for the tooth, for enamel and dentin, okay? Can you use it on zirconia? If your adhesive has MDP, yes. But if you're cementing zirconia more and more, you should have a primer that is dedicated for your zirconia. Always. Always. Okay? Now, MDP is a monomer that was developed by a company called Curare, a very good monomer. It's a very good monomer, and it was added to adhesives, to cements, to primers, and it was protected by a patent, and then the patent expired, and now everyone is using it. That's why you see so many companies using MDP as a monomer. And people say, well, a monomer is a monomer. I'm sorry. Those monomers that other companies make, or, it's not the original monomer. It's kind of like a knockoff, like fake. And I just want to tell you that it is not correct. It is not correct. And the reason why it is not correct, I'm sorry. I have to turn on my phone. The reason it's not correct is because MDP is a molecule. It doesn't change, okay? It's a chemical structure. It doesn't change. What changes is the formula of your primer. So you have different formulas where you add MDP, and every formula has other components, You have water, you have bis-GMA, you have a solvent, and, for example, if Dr. Khan and I, right, decide to make a primer, he's going to make it over there in Vietnam. I'm going to make it here in Chicago. And we both get MDP. We both have MDP. He's going to make his own formula. He's going to add, let's say, acetone as a solvent, and he's going to add 10% MDP and 20% water and 80% acetone and whatever. It's his formula. I have MDP here in Chicago, but I decide to use ethanol as my solvent. And I don't add any water, but I add ethoxylated bis-GMA, whatever. They both have MDP, but the formulas are different. So the MDP is not the problem. MDP is the structure. What changes is the formula. I just want to make this clear because I know that, I know that curare makes this claim that we are original. Everyone else is a fake knockoff. And I find that to be a bad marketing because it's not true. Now they can say we have been using MDP longer than anybody because we created it. And that's true. That's not a lie. But when you tell me MDP, mine is different. No, my formula is different, but my MDP is the same. It is the same. So I just wanted to make that clear. Now, primers that I have used in the lab, that I have tested in the lab. These are the primers that I have tested. Z prime, monobond, and ceramic primer, okay? They all work on zirconia. Of course, Z prime plus is our product. It was the first dedicated primer for zirconia in the world. It has extensive clinical use. It has a lot of research behind it, and it works fantastically. Okay, Z prime is intended for zirconia, alumina, metal, and also you can use it on composite. Okay, so it's multi-purpose, but the main use is for zirconia because it's the most popular surface out there right now. The other two are they're mixed with silane, and they're different. Okay, different formulas. Everybody's got a formula. Let me remind you, but they do contain MDP. So they will work on zirconia, okay? We just happen to be dedicated to zirconia, all right? We focused on zirconia. For other things, we have silane. But for zirconia, we have Z prime, okay? So, but you need a primer that contains MDP. Now, cleaners. This is important. Why? Because when you try it in, you're going to have to clean it. You are going to have to clean it, okay? So we have these two, Ivoclean and Zirclean. Ivoclean is from Ivoclar. It was the first cleaner that came out for zirconia. Comes in a bottle, is pink in color. You need to dispense it, apply with a microbrush, and rinse it, and you're good. Okay, it will work. Let me make that clear. It will work. It cleans the surface. It will work very, very well. So Bisco decided to make a cleaner. It's called Zirclean. Comes in a syringe, gel. You apply it directly from the syringe. You put a little tip, put it on, on the contaminated surface of zirconia, rinse it. It will work also. It will work very well. They both work. The only difference is that Zirclean, the delivery system, is in a syringe and the consistency is a gel. Ivoclean, it's a liquid, comes in a bottle, you need to dispense it and then use a microbrush or a brush or whatever. Okay, that's the main difference. And maybe the price, I don't know. Because prices change from country to country. So I don't know what the price is. But there is a difference. The delivery system is totally different. But they both work. And if you don't have a sandblaster, you are going to need Zirclean for sure. Or Ivoclean. You're going to need it. Okay? Can you clean your metal restorations with this, with Zirclean? Yeah, you can. Can you clean your Emax restoration with this? Yeah, you can. So you can use it as a restoration cleaner. But on zirconia, it's not a cleaner. It's a decontaminating agent because zirconia becomes contaminated by saliva. Okay? I just want to make that distinction. For zirconia, this is mandatory. For Emax and other things, this is optional. But you can use it. Okay? You can use it. So you need to consider a few things before moving forward. If your restoration is not ideal, your preparation, you have a short prep, let's say it's a crown, you have a short prep, you have too much taper, you better do bonding to the tooth. Because even if you make the best bonding on the zirconia, your retention, biological geometry of your preparation, if it's not helping you, and then you're gonna need to bond. And by bond, I mean apply an adhesive on the tooth, okay? If you really want to achieve bonding to zirconia, the zirconia surface has to be clean. It has to be sandblasted and primed, but it has to be clean. No saliva, okay? It has to be decontaminated. And your primer must have MDP, for sure. Absolutely. This is very important. Otherwise, it will not bond. It will not. No bond. Okay? It has to have MDP. Okay? Now, there are cements that contain MDP. They are usually self-adhesive cements. These are two examples, Panavia and Theracem, okay? And Theracem contains MDP, Panavia contains MDP, Speedsem from Ivoclar contains MDP. There are a few cements that contain MDP, okay? And they will work on the zirconia surface, okay? What's the difference? I mean, what's the benefit? Well, that if you are going to bond to zirconia and you're going to use Theracem, for example, you don't need to apply a primer with MDP because a Theracem alone will bond to zirconia. The MDP is incorporated in the formula. But here's the deal, though. This is important, very, very important. It needs to be decontaminated first. So you take the restoration, you try it in, and then you decontaminate it. And then after that, and then you apply your Theracem. All right? Then you apply your Theracem. Otherwise, your Theracem is not going to bond if it's contaminated. Okay? So that's very important. So now, can you use Theracem for all types of restoration, zirconia restoration? Well, no. Your restoration must have a good height and a good, you know, a retentive, how do you call it, taper. On a veneer, you can use Theracem. You need to use other things, okay? But if you have enough retention for a crown, a bridge, and crown over or bridge over implants, inlay and onlay, you can use Theracem for sure, okay? Now, we have seen that some of these products, they work best if you use a primer. Even though Panavia has MDP, we see that when you use it with a primer, it works better. And we used it with their primer. So Panavia, specifically Panavia, works fine. If you use their primer, it works better, okay? But it will work fine. On the other hand, Theracem, when you add Z prime, it doesn't make it better. So you really don't need a primer, okay? It doesn't make it better. With Panavia, it does make it better. But Panavia alone will work, and it will work fine. Good bond strength. But you use a primer, better bond strength. With Theracem, good bonds, great bond strength, whether you're using a primer or not, okay? I wanted to share this with you guys, which is basically the relationship between taper and retention. So when you have a preparation that has about 10 degrees of taper. You know, let me put my hands like this. 10 degrees. Let's say, oh geez, I'm confused here. I'm trying to make it happen. Okay, here we go. 10 degrees. You're going to have a good retention. As you start to increase that taper to 15 degrees or 20 degrees, your retention goes down. Okay? It goes down. So if you have good retention and good bonding, your restoration has a better chance of staying in place. If you don't have a lot of retention, even if you have good bonding, you might encounter issues. But what happens, and I'm going to talk to you guys as a colleague, as a dentist, when something fails, we tend to blame the material. Oh, the material is awful. Well, let me see your prep. No one wants to show their preps. They want to say that it was the material. And sometimes the material is not intended to work in certain situations. And sometimes the material really is not going to work in something that has this kind of, preparation where retention is not being something that you're accomplishing by your prep, So you need to be more careful when you evaluate the reasons for failure. And this is one, your taper, for sure. But also, you have height, the height of your prep, your height. So I did this table. That is the relationship.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah,
Hello.
Hello.
Yes.
I have been disconnected from Zoom. Now I'm reconnect.
Okay. Okay. All right. Can I continue?
Can you wait for me about 2 minutes? I have to check the interpretation function.
Oh, okay. I'll wait. You let me know when to start again.
Okay. Okay. Now we can continue. Thank you for waiting me. Hello, doctor.
Yes. Okay, here we go. Perfect. Okay, so we can continue. Well, thank you so much. So this table gives you a relationship between the height of your prep, okay? The height of your prep. And hold on, I'm sorry. Something came in the middle of some email, sorry. The height of your prep and the degrees of the taper. So when you have a prep that is about 4 millimeters in height, you can use, and you have a good taper about 8, to 12 degrees, you can use a glass ionomer, resin modified glass ionomer, or a self-adhesive cement like Theracem, and it's going to work fine. But as you start increasing the taper, even though you have 4 millimeters in height, now you're moving towards a little bit more bonding, like a self-adhesive cement, and the glass ionomers don't work anymore. Okay? And glass ionomers can work. I'm not saying they can't, but under specific conditions. Now we're going to, shorten the prep now. We're going from 4 millimeters to 3 millimeters, different tapers. Again, if you're between 8 and 10, you can use anything. Resin modifying glass ionomer, self-adhesive cement. But as you increase your taper from 12 now, you're going to need to use a self-adhesive cement. And if you get to 20 degrees in taper, now you need to bond. And by bond, I mean bond to the tooth. Okay? Now, if you have a short prep, 2 millimeters, that's short. You're going to have to bond. And as you increase your taper, now you have to think about crown lengthening. Okay? So all these things need to be considered before selecting a material and before you actually even think about a technique. The height and the taper of your prep, which you can measure on a model. Well, you can measure it intraorally if you want, but if you want to do a much better measurement, you can measure it in a model. You finish your prep, you take an impression. Doesn't have to be a fancy impression, and you measure it. Or if you have a scanner, even better. You scan it and then you can measure it in your computer. And it will tell you, yeah, this is a taper, and you can measure it. And based upon that, if you want to take a picture of this slide, you can. Take a picture right now. Or watch this video later and then use this as a reference. This comes from literature. This is not something I made up, okay? And that can definitely help you succeed. Because if you have a short prep and you want to use something like Theracem, it's not going to work. And it's not because Theracem is a bad product. It's because that clinically, Theracem is not intended to work. You need to bond to the tooth. And then you're going to have to think about your choice of adhesive, cement, technique. Okay? So bonding from a lab perspective is achievable based upon a very optimized protocol, but clinically, things don't always relate to what happens in the lab. Most of the time, it doesn't. Because I can provide you with the best bonding protocol, but if you have a short prep, it's not going to work. Like, you can bond to the zirconia, but what happens to the restoration? And then you're like, you send me an email saying, hey, I watched your webinar and I did everything you told me and I bought all the products and the crown fell off. And the first question I'm going to ask you is, what was the height of your prep? I will ask you, what do you use? Oh, I use Theracem. Okay. And what is the height of your prep? And if you tell me 2 millimeters, I will tell you, well, you were not supposed to use Theracem. Oh, I didn't know that. Well, now you do. You learn the hard way. So this table is interesting. I find it interesting that some clinicians don't like to evaluate these things. Okay, you should. Okay, so for a retentive prep, and a retentive prep is anything that goes, 3 to 4 millimeters in height and, up to 16 degrees in taper, you can use Theracem for sure without the need of a primer. If you want to use Theracem, okay? If you want to use Theracem, you don't need to use Z-prime with Theracem, but you will need a syringe of zircon. 100%. 100%. Okay? Now, if you have a prep that is not retentive, or if you're going to bond, if you have a prep that is not retentive, and a veneer prep is not retentive, just for you to know, a veneer prep is not retentive. So you're like, oh, I have some incisors. They have 7 millimeters in height. Yeah, but your prep is not retentive. Your prep is not retentive. You need to bond. So you are going to need zircon after you try in the restoration to clean it, decontaminate it. And then you're going to have to prime the zirconia. Why? Because you're not going to use Theracem. Okay? And then on the tooth, you're going to use a bonding technique, whether it's total etch, whether it's self-etch, whether it's selective etch. That's up to you. And that's a different webinar. Okay? You're going to use your bonding technique. Okay? Apply your adhesive. I have a picture of All Bond Universal. And then you are going to decide which cement you're going to use for that restoration. If you're doing crown inlays and onlays, you're going to use a dual cure cement, such as Dual-Link. Now, if you're going to do a veneer, you need to use a light cured cement, such as Choice 2. Okay, so this is what you need to bond to zirconia in case of a preparation that is less than ideal. But this is what you need to bond to zirconia on an ideal preparation or, you know, restoration. Okay, so you can, but you see the difference between a retentive prep and a non-retentive prep. Huge difference. You're still going to achieve good bond to zirconia, always, with Theracem. What you're not going to achieve is bond to the tooth structure when you need to bond to the tooth structure. And this is where you need to make a clinical assessment. Okay? Now, consider that if you decide to use visco products, when using Theracem, Z prime is not needed, 100%. If you're using Theracem, All Bond Universal is also not needed because it is self-adhesive. That's also interesting. Now, you need to realize that Theracem contains calcium and it's opaque. So if you are going to bond, if you're going to use Theracem in an area that is aesthetic and you're relying on the shade of, I mean, it all depends. If you think your cement will have an impact on your final shade, Theracem is opaque. Consider that, okay? And also you need to consider that you have different types of zirconia. Okay, and the different types of zirconia have different clinical applications. You're going to do veneers, you're probably going to go to 5-1. You're going to do crowns in the anterior region, maybe you want to do 4-1. You're going to the back and it doesn't matter how it looks, you can go 3-1. Or you can also use 4-1. It's up to you, but you need to understand that the different types of zirconia will provide different types of aesthetic results. And they also will provide different physical properties, okay? And regardless, zirconia, the weakest zirconia, still very strong. Very, very, very strong. All right, my friend, Dr. Khan, I have finished the presentation at 9:13, giving our audience about 15 minutes for Q&A. If there are any questions, feel free to ask them right now, and I will be more than happy to answer them live. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And now there are questions already. So let me know how you want to handle this, because I don't know if the questions are being, yep, they are in Vietnamese. So you're going to have to read them.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. And now I will change my role. Linh ơi, chuyển anh về chế độ bình thường, tắt chế độ dịch đi nào. Okay. Okay, can you hear me now, Dr. Nunes?
I can hear you.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. It's a very
My pleasure.
detailed, and we have a lot of questions. I think so. I have to say something to our attendee, so it's wait. Cảm ơn mọi người đã lắng nghe cái phần bài giảng của thầy từ đầu đến cuối, và bây giờ nếu mọi người có câu hỏi gì thì mọi người có thể chat vào khung Q&A hoặc là vào khung chat để mình có thể hỏi đáp, hoặc mình có thể dịch ra cho thầy để chuyển cái câu hỏi này cho mọi người, được không ạ? The first question is there is some research that you can clean the zirconia with hyposodium chloride 5%. How do you think about this? The first question.
Yeah, I don't know.
Sorry, I cannot hear you. I think.
Hello?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Yeah, the answer is I don't know.
Sorry, I cannot hear you now.
The answer to your question is I don't know.
Okay.
If I need to clean zirconia, I will use Ivoclean or Zirclean. That's it.
Yeah. Thì thầy có trả lời là tôi không biết về cái phương pháp nghiên cứu làm sạch lòng mão zirconia bằng NaOCl, và nếu cần thì thầy sẽ dùng các cái phương pháp đã được chứng minh, đó là Ivoclean hoặc là Zirclean. Okay, the second question is which type of curing light we should use for Theracem, and how long should we have to cure the cement?
Okay, so when you seat the restoration, the excess cement that comes out, you can cure it for about 2 seconds. So you can clean it. And then you can finish polymerizing the gingival margin for, I don't know, 15 to 20 seconds or something on each side. But Theracem is intended to also cure chemically. Okay. What kind of curing light? I don't know. In our lab, we work with Velo from Ultradent. We have something called, we have halogen lights also. We have Elipar from 3M. We have Demi from Kerr. We have Blueface from Ivoclar. That's all. I had a Velo light in my office, so.
Okay. Thì để về vấn đề là dùng đèn quang trùng hợp thì ở phòng thí nghiệm của thầy thì dùng rất là nhiều loại đèn khác nhau, ví dụ là của Valo, halogen, của Elipa, của Cơ, của Ivoclar, rất nhiều loại khác nhau, thì hầu hết các loại đèn đều có thể sử dụng được. Thế còn câu hỏi thứ hai là chiếu bao lâu, thì khi mà mình gắn lên trên răng ấy thì mình sẽ có cái xi măng thừa nó trào ra ngoài rất là nhiều, và mình sẽ chiếu đèn khoảng 2 giây để nó đông cứng lại, và lúc đó mình có thể lấy ra được. Và tiếp theo mình sẽ chiếu cái đường hoàn tất trong vòng 15 đến 20 giây. Được chưa? I have another question about the bonding between restoration and implant surface. I think it's a attachment, bonding titanium-based attachment to zirconia crown. I think so. What is your procedures, and what cement do you use?
Theracem.
Theracem. Yeah.
Yes. And the reason,
and how
the reason is because Theracem has MDP. And also, there is the abutment provides retention, you know? So you have enough retention, and Theracem has MDP that will bond to zirconia and to metal. It will bond to both. Now you need to sandblast it and then apply Theracem. I have I know many labs that do tie-based cementation in the lab, and they use TerraSand.
Yeah. Okay. And can we use a glass ionomer cement or resin modified glass ionomer cement instead of TerraSand? Can we use in this case?
I showed a table. Oh, for the titanium and zirconia and metal and zirconia.
Yeah, between titanium base and zirconia. Can we
Resin
use
modified
glass
glass
ionomer
ionomer.
cement or
Yeah,
resin modified?
Yeah, it will bond to metal. It won't bond to zirconia very well, but it will bond to metal for sure.
Yeah. 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 Ok. Thì về cái câu hỏi đối với phục hình trên implant thì nên dùng loại nào tốt hơn giữa Fuji hoặc là cái loại gia cố nhựa hoặc là xi măng nhựa tự dính, thì thầy có trả lời là dùng những cái Fuji hoặc là xi măng nhựa hoặc là những cái gia cố nó ok, nó hoàn toàn ok, nhưng mà nó tại vì là cơ bản là cái attachment của implant nó đã có cái độ lưu rất là tốt rồi, không mọi người có thể đo thử và so sánh với cái bảng mà thầy đã cung cấp. Vấn đề thứ hai là dùng loại nào tốt hơn thì đối với thầy là cái xi măng TerraSand, tại vì hoặc là xi măng nhựa tự dính mà có NDP nói chung, tại vì là cái xi măng Fuji Glass Ionomer Cement ấy, thì cái đấy nó chỉ dính một kim loại thôi, nó dính rất là tốt vào kim loại nhưng nó sẽ không dính vào cái bề mặt của zirconia. Đấy thì tuy nhiên cái này mọi người cũng phải cân nhắc, tại vì là nếu nó đã lưu tốt rồi thì mình sử dụng cái loại xi măng nào cũng được đúng theo cái bảng mà thầy đã đưa ấy, thì nó vẫn nằm trong khuyến cáo, được chưa? Câu hỏi tiếp theo là thời gian sau khi mình sử dụng, nghĩa là sau khi bị nhiễm nước bọt thì cái mình cần làm sạch trong vòng bao lâu? So another question is about the time you have to wait when you apply the Zirclean or Ivoclean. The time you have to wait. The next question.
Okay, so for Zirclean, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it's 20 seconds. For Zirclean, okay. For Ivoclean, I am not sure, but I will tell you this: every single time you are going to use a product, you should read the instructions. In the instructions, you will have absolutely all the information that you need. So you shouldn't be asking people, how long do I do this? You should read the instructions, and the instructions are going to be, they should be clear. So I am going, I just went through the instructions of Zirclean. I have them here. It's 20 seconds. Ivoclean, I don't know. But I'm sure that you can find it on Ivoclar. If you write Ivoclean instructions in Google, you know what? Let me do it right now. But the idea is for, if you have the product, you should have the instructions. And that way, you don't need to be concerned about on how to use it. Go on.
Okay. So câu trả lời cho cái này là về thời gian để sử dụng cái Zirclean, các sản phẩm làm sạch sau khi bị nhiễm nước bọt ấy. Thì đối với cái sản phẩm Zirclean của Bisco thì sẽ là 20 giây. Còn sản phẩm của Ivoclar thì thầy sẽ không biết, nhưng mà thầy có khuyến cáo cho mọi người là trước khi dùng bất cứ sản phẩm nào mình cũng phải đọc cái hướng dẫn sử dụng của nó, của nhà sản xuất. Có thể cho lên Google để tìm rất là nhiều thông tin về cái sản phẩm làm sạch này. Nhưng mà đối với Zirclean là 20 giây. 20 giây sau đó thổi sạch. Sorry?
Ivoclean is 20 seconds also. I just read it.
Ok. Yeah. Thầy vừa mới search xong thì Ivoclean cũng là 20 giây. Như vậy là sử dụng các chất làm sạch là để lên cái bề mặt, toàn bộ cái bề mặt lòng trong của zirconia ấy, trong vòng 20 giây là ok. Được chưa? Tiếp theo, câu hỏi tiếp theo là giữa làm sạch bằng dung dịch, làm sạch với thổi cát thì biện pháp nào sẽ làm sạch phản ứng giữa nước bọt với zirconia? So the next question is can you compare between sandblast and decontaminate with zircon or ivoclean? Can you compare the effect between
Yes.
two of that?
Yes. So sandblasting, if done properly, will be as effective as using a decontaminating agent. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
If done properly. Now, are you doing it properly?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's why, in order to make sure, it might be a good idea to use ivoclean after sandblasting. We do things on flat surfaces, crowns, bridges, inlays, onlays, and veneers are not flat. So I know that I can see what I'm sandblasting, but in a crown is different. So if you do it properly, it will work for sure, but it doesn't hurt to use the decontamination agent.
Ok, thì câu trả lời của thầy là giữa cái làm sạch bằng dung dịch, làm sạch như vừa rồi với cả cái thổi cát thì biện pháp nào sẽ làm sạch hơn ấy? Thì nếu mà thổi cát mình làm đúng thì mình hoàn toàn có thể làm sạch tương đương với việc sử dụng cái dung dịch làm sạch. Tại vì mọi người phải hiểu là cái dung dịch làm sạch này nó sẽ tách được cái phản ứng giữa nước bọt và cái zirconia ra. Thế còn nếu mà mình thổi cát mình phải làm đúng cơ. Thế còn làm đúng trong điều kiện phòng thí nghiệm là khi người ta làm trên một cái đĩa zirconia mà nó rất là phẳng, thì lúc ấy phòng thí nghiệm người ta đã biết là chỗ nào đã được thổi cát hay không. Tuy nhiên đối với cái chụp ý, mình sẽ có những cái góc, đúng không ạ? Có những cái góc và cái diện tích nó rất là bé, cho nên là mình không thể đảm bảo chắc chắn được là khi thổi cát nó sẽ sạch, kể cả mình làm đúng thông số nữa. Thế nên là cái khuyến cáo là vẫn nên sử dụng cái biện pháp làm sạch bằng cái dung dịch làm sạch chuyên dụng, nó sẽ tốt hơn, nó sẽ đảm bảo hơn. Tại vì là mô tả qua cho mọi người lại một chút là cái nước bọt ấy, nó sẽ chiếm chỗ, nó sẽ gắn luôn vào cái thành phần của zirconia ấy. Và lúc ấy là cái primer nó không thể nào gắn được với zirconia nữa, tại vì nó đã bị chiếm chỗ bởi cái thằng nước bọt rồi. Thế nên là việc làm sạch nó là nên làm sạch, một là thổi cát sẽ làm bay bỏ cái lớp đấy đi, nó sẽ đóng thêm một lớp mà, thì làm bay hẳn cái lớp đi, và thứ hai là dùng cái dung dịch để phá bỏ cái liên kết đấy đi. Câu hỏi tiếp theo là thưa xem không.
Dr. Khan?
Yeah.
I got time for one more question. I have to go to another webinar I have to give. So you got 3 minutes, and I'm sorry.
Okay.
One more question. Go on.
Okay. Câu hỏi cuối cùng là bảo quản Theracem trong điều kiện nhiệt độ của môi trường như thế nào là tốt nhất? Sau khi mở nắp dùng trong thời gian bao lâu, và có ý kiến cho rằng Theracem có canxi silicat nên không được bảo quản trong ngăn mát. Ý kiến của thầy như thế nào? So the last question is can you tell me how to store it, the Theracem for the best? And there are some point that Theracem contain calcium silicate, so it cannot put it in the refrigerator. So how do you think about this? The question is about the storage of Theracem.
Okay, if you keep it at room temperature, you're fine. Now, room temperature varies per country. Vietnam is very hot. I have been there. It's very hot. Okay. So maybe put it in the fridge is fine. You can put it in the fridge, but you got to look at the temperature range of Theracem. If you can put it somewhere where it's, maybe in a cabinet or it's a little fresh, it's better. But the high heat can be a problem for any dual cure material, whether it's an impression material, anything that is chemically cured, the heat can affect.
Yeah, can you tell me about the temperature range of Theracem? Temperature range.
I am going to look at it right now. I am looking at it. I'm gonna, find it. and I'm going to see if I can give you the proper temperature range. Hold on one second. Reviews. I'm going to give you the temperature range. Let me just find it. And let me see, precautions. There's give me 1 second.
Yeah, I'm
okay
waiting.
So do you guys do it says here storage at room temperature, 20 to 25 degrees. That's basically what it's saying here. So
Okay.
That's it. It does not need to be refrigerated. I don't know if it will hurt the material. We never put it inside a fridge, so I don't have an answer.
Yeah.
But if you keep it in that
Okay.
temperature range, you're fine.
Ok. Về cái câu trả lời này thì đâu rồi? Sorry mọi người. Câu trả lời là bảo quản Theracem trong điều kiện nhiệt độ và môi trường như thế nào là tốt nhất. Và sau khi mở nắp, sau có ý kiến cho rằng là Theracem có chứa calcium silicate này không được bảo quản lạnh. Thì ý kiến của thầy như nào? Thì câu trả lời là bảo quản trong cái nhiệt độ đối với nhà sản xuất ghi là nhiệt độ phòng. Nó sẽ ở mức là 20 đến 25 độ C, nhưng mà cái nhiệt độ này nó rất là khác ở tất cả các quốc gia khác nhau, nó đều khác. Và cái nhiệt độ 20 đến 25 độ C này nếu mà mình đảm bảo được nó luôn luôn ở trong cái điều kiện này, nó sẽ không làm sao cả. Nhưng nếu mọi người để nó bị nóng hơn chẳng hạn, hoặc để bị lạnh hơn chẳng hạn, nó cũng là một nguyên nhân. Thì nó có thể hỏng. Thế còn cái việc là về cái nguyên liệu, cái vật liệu calcium silicate mà không nên được bảo quản ngăn mát thì thầy chưa có những cái nghiên cứu cụ thể về vấn đề đấy. Nhưng mà cái việc sử dụng để bảo quản Theracem như thế nào thì đảm bảo cái nhiệt độ 20 đến 25 là tốt nhất. Và còn nếu mà ở Việt Nam nó là cái đất nước nhiệt đới nó nóng, mình có thể để vào ngăn mát nếu mà có cái tủ mát ấy. Nhưng mà tóm lại là vẫn phải để ở nhiệt độ 20 đến 25 độ C. Thì mình sẽ bổ sung thêm một chút cái này về phía mình là xử lý các cái vấn đề về Pisco tại Việt Nam. Nếu mọi người sử dụng cái xi măng Theracem có bất cứ vấn đề gì, hãy đừng có ngần ngại gọi ngay cho nhân viên công ty Thái Bình Dương để có thể xử lý được. Và phải xử lý cho mọi người đấy, tại vì là nếu mà không xử lý cho mọi người thì rất dễ mọi người sẽ tưởng là nó không làm sao, mọi người gắn thì nhỡ lại có vấn đề gì đấy, đúng không ạ? Thì đây là quyền lợi mọi người có thể liên hệ để công ty trước hết là kiểm tra, xử lý, sau đó gửi lên hãng Pisco để kiểm tra và đổi bảo hành cho mọi người. Cái này là mình sẽ nói thêm ở ngoài một chút, bởi vì mình là người phụ trách các vấn đề này ở khu vực miền Bắc, khu vực miền Nam sẽ có người khác phụ trách, được chưa? Và đây là câu hỏi cuối cùng rồi, tại vì là thời gian của thầy cũng có hạn. Và sau đây thì các câu hỏi còn lại thì mọi người có thể gửi vào cái email mà info@dentalpacific.com.vn để mình có thể gửi cho thầy để trả lời thêm, được chưa? Và rất là cảm ơn mọi người về cái buổi học hôm nay. So Dr. Nunes, thank you for your presentation today, and I hope we can have another webinar soon about another topic. And once again, thank you so much. Thank you for today.
Thank you so much for the invitation. It was my pleasure. It's good to see you, brother. See that you're doing well. Sorry if I was not sufficiently clear. My English is not my first language. I try. Sometimes I fail, but that's just what we do. All right. I have to go. Thank you so much to everyone, and I gotta go to another webinar. Bye bye.
Yeah, thank you. Bye bye. Cảm ơn tất cả mọi người ạ. Và các cái video bài giảng này thì có thể là chậm nhất sẽ gửi đến mọi người trong khoảng 3 ngày, nghĩa là ngày 14 ạ, 14. Thì có thể gửi đến email, mọi người có thể để ý check email cái phần ở hộp thư hòm thư cập nhật hoặc hòm thư xã hội ấy, nó sẽ có một cái email đến từ Pacific Dental, sẽ có cái hướng dẫn cho các cái để truy cập các cái phần video bài giảng này ạ. Và một lần nữa xin cảm ơn tất cả mọi người, và mình có thể nhắc lại là mọi người có bất cứ vấn đề gì về sản phẩm Pisco thì có thể liên hệ với sale của công ty Pacific, hoặc là mình là người trực tiếp phụ trách tất cả các vấn đề của sản phẩm Pisco ở tại khu vực miền Bắc, được chưa? Và đấy là quyền lợi của mọi người. Mình cũng không muốn là mọi người gắn lên bệnh nhân mà nó lại có vấn đề gì đấy mà mọi người không biết ấy, thì mọi người có thể hỏi mình ạ. Và mọi người có thể không để mình có thể hỗ trợ mọi người tốt nhất, được chưa? Cảm ơn mọi người. Chúc mọi người có một buổi tối xem bóng đá vui vẻ. Có một buổi tối ngủ ngon. Cảm ơn tất cả mọi người đã tham gia ngày hôm nay. Xin chào.